When Billie Holiday first performed Strange Fruit at Café Society in 1939, she wasn't just giving a song performance, she was signing her own death warrant. This song would completely change Lady Day's life and trap her in a nightmare that would last for 20 years. The song's creator, Abel Meeropol, had warned Billie, "This song is too dangerous, it could kill you." But Lady Day didn't listen, and indeed, Strange Fruit slowly killed Billie Holiday. The FBI began tracking her. Concert halls in southern states banned her. She received mob threats, and eventually she was driven to drug addiction. When she died at Metropolitan Hospital in 1959, her last words were about the cursed song. So was Strange Fruit really cursed, or was it a weapon used by powerful people to silence her? If you want to discover all the chilling details of this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications, because the real story of Strange Fruit will reveal music history's darkest secrets. In 1937, Abel Meeropol was an English teacher at a high school in the Bronx, and also wrote poetry under the pen name Lewis Allen. That year, a photograph he saw in Life magazine changed his life forever. Two young black men lynched, hanging from a tree with a smiling white crowd beneath them. Meeropol couldn't sleep that night, and the next morning he wrote the poem Strange Fruit. But this wasn't just a poem, it was a bomb that would expose America's darkest truth. When Meeropol set the poem to music, he was well aware of how dangerous this could be. In 1930s America, speaking this openly about racism was social suicide. When he first had the poem read at Café Society, listeners were shocked and a deathly silence filled the room. But Meeropol's real concern was whether this song would fall into the right hands, because if sung by the wrong performer, both the singer's and the message's life would be in danger. Fate brought the song to Billie Holiday. When Lady Day heard Strange Fruit from Café Society owner Barney Josephson in 1939, she immediately expressed her desire to perform this song. Josephson and Meeropol tried to explain to Billie how dangerous this could be. Meeropol's words would echo for years to come. "Billie, this song could kill you. America isn't ready to hear this truth, and if you speak this truth, they won't show you mercy." Billie Holiday's response was resolute. "If I'm going to die, I'll still sing this song, because it needs to be sung." No one knew at the time that these words would be the moment Lady Day sealed her own fate. Because Strange Fruit wasn't just a song, it would also be the beginning of a systematic destruction operation that would last for 20 years. February 16, 1939, Café Society. Billie Holiday was about to perform Strange Fruit for the first time, but this wasn't a normal concert night. Barney Josephson had taken special precautions. All service would stop, no one would move, and applause was forbidden until the song ended. Among the customers in the room were famous writers, socialists, communists, and unexpectedly, FBI agents as well. When Billie took the stage, she had a gardenia flower in her hair and deep determination in her eyes. When she began the song, her voice could be heard trembling, but this wasn't fear, it was anger. As she sang the lines, "Southern trees bear a strange fruit," the air in the room became so thick that breathing became difficult. As people understood what the song meant, some began to cry, some angrily stood up, while others froze in horror. The most critical detail was the reaction of the FBI agent present during the song. Agent Frank Wilson was observed taking notes while listening to the song and immediately rushing to the phone after the performance. The next day, a Billie Holiday subversive activities file was opened in FBI archives, and Lady Day's 20-year surveillance period began. On the first page of this file was Agent Wilson's report from that night. Subject performed highly inflammatory anti-American propaganda disguised as entertainment. When the song ended, the silence at Café Society was indescribable. Despite the applause band, some people began to stand and applaud, but the majority was in shock. Journalists who heard about this performance published stories the next day with headlines like "Provocative Song Shocks Audience" and "Dangerous Musical Propaganda." But most importantly, the reaction from radio stations and concert organizers in southern states was telling. Billie Holiday was now on the unwanted persons list. Just 3 days after the Strange Fruit performance, a special team was assigned to Billie Holiday at the FBI. This team, formed under J. Edgar Hoover's directives, would follow Lady Day 24 hours a day, monitor all her concerts and investigate her possible subversive connections. The code name for this operation was Operation Strange, and Billie Holiday was the first musician officially considered a threat by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. FBI agents began attending every one of Billie's concerts. These agents recorded the songs Lady Day performed, analyzed audience reactions, and identified possible communist sympathizers. The most surprising detail was that the FBI classified the song Strange Fruit as a psychological warfare weapon. In bureau reports, it was stated that the song damaged national morale and fueled racial tensions. Even more sinister was the FBI's development of active sabotage plans to stop Billie Holiday. These plans included organizing concert cancellations, pressuring radio stations, and most critically, encouraging Billie's drug use. In FBI files, there were documents stating that the subject's drug dependency could be used for career destruction. This was evidence that the federal government was planning to deliberately drive a citizen into drug addiction. The most tragic part was that this operation was successful. From 1939 onward, Billie Holiday's life began to be systematically sabotaged. Concert reservations were mysteriously canceled, record companies terminated contracts, and Lady Day faced financial difficulties. This financial stress made her more easily controllable, and as the FBI had planned, Billie began using drugs. As Strange Fruit began to be widely heard, the reaction in southern states reached savage proportions. Concert halls in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Louisiana declared Billie Holiday persona non grata. But these weren't just simple bans. This was a coordinated boycott campaign. Organizations like the White Citizens Council and Ku Klux Klan made systematic efforts to prevent Lady Day from performing. The most dangerous development was the increase in direct threats Billie received. One of the letters she received in 1940 read, "If you sing that song again, you'll hang like the strange fruit on your daddy's tree." Such threats came so frequently that Billie's manager Joe Glazer had to hire private security. However, Glazer's own connections were also suspicious because he had ties to organized crime, and sometimes these relationships conflicted with Billie's safety. Even more concerning was that these threats didn't remain just in letter form. After performing in New Orleans in 1941, a bomb threat was called into Billie's hotel. In 1943, armed men entered backstage in Memphis and threatened Lady Day, saying, "Don't sing that nigger song again." These incidents showed that Strange Fruit wasn't just a song but had made Billie Holiday a target that threatened her life. The most tragic detail was Billie's insistence on continuing to sing the song despite these threats. Lady Day told friends, "Even if they kill me, I'll sing this song because they need to hear it." This determination was a mixture of both courage and obsession, and it drove Billie Holiday into even greater dangers. The controversy of Strange Fruit wasn't limited to live performances. Record companies began having major hesitations about recording and distributing this song. Columbia Records, Billie's main label, categorically refused to record Strange Fruit. Company executives stated that the song was too controversial and would mean commercial suicide. This rejection meant a major financial blow for Lady Day. As an alternative, Billie Holiday had to make a deal with a small and independent label called Commodore Records. Commodore's owner Milt Gabler showed the courage to record Strange Fruit, but this decision was also risky for the company. Major distributors refused to stock the album, and radio stations wouldn't play it. As a result, Strange Fruit had limited circulation, and Billie's potential income decreased dramatically. Even more problematic was the systematic blacklisting of Billie Holiday by major record companies. RCA Victor, Decca, and other major companies stopped offering new contracts to Lady Day. This blacklist wasn't official, but showed industry-wide coordination. FBI files documented that federal agents had meetings with record executives and gave briefings about Billie Holiday being a national security risk. This economic pressure pushed Billie into desperate situations. Lady Day began performing at lower-quality venues to make ends meet, and parallel to this situation, her alcohol and drug use increased due to stress and financial anxiety. As the FBI had planned, Strange Fruit made Billie Holiday economically vulnerable and placed her in a controllable position. When Billie Holiday's heroin use began in the mid-1940s, it was revealed years later that this wasn't a coincidence. FBI files documented that federal agents monitored Billie's drug connections but didn't intervene. Even more surprising was the determination that some drug dealers were federal informants and had received specific instructions to target Billie. Harry Anslinger, head of the Federal Narcotics Bureau, was conducting a personal vendetta against Billie Holiday. Anslinger viewed Strange Fruit as un-American activity and wanted to make Lady Day an example at the federal level. The Bureau's strategy was to drive Billie into drug addiction and then repeatedly arrest her to destroy her career. This plan showed systematic implementation. The most sinister aspect was undercover agents infiltrating Billie's inner circle. These agents introduced themselves as musicians, promoters, or friends and supplied drugs to Lady Day. As Billie's heroin dependency developed, federal authorities strengthened their control mechanisms. Drug raids, arrests, and court cases kept Billie constantly in legal troubles and eliminated her career focus. The 1947 arrest and subsequent prison sentence was the culmination of this strategic plan. The 10 months Billie spent at Alderson Federal Prison wasn't just punishment, but also systematic humiliation. She was forbidden from singing Strange Fruit in prison, and attempts were made to teach Lady Day patriotic songs. This period was psychological warfare designed to break Billie's spirit. Billie Holiday's manager Joe Glazer's connections with organized crime made the Strange Fruit controversy even more complex. Glazer was a figure close to the Chicago mob, and his management of Billie created an opportunity for federal authorities. The FBI tried to control Lady Day's activities by pressuring Glazer. This relationship created double jeopardy for Billie because she was being manipulated by both federal agents and mobsters. Glazer's role was to exacerbate Billie's drug problem. As manager, he facilitated Lady Day's drug connections while simultaneously providing information to federal authorities. This arrangement was beneficial for all parties. The FBI could monitor Billie, the mob secured Glazer's loyalty, and Glazer received protection from both sides. Only Billie Holiday was the victim of this game. The most tragic example was Glazer deliberately exposing Billie to dangerous situations in the late 1940s. The manager booked Lady Day at drug-infested venues, introduced her to high-risk individuals, and every accident or arrest provided additional evidence to federal files. Glazer also controlled Billie's earnings and kept her in financial dependency. The most damning evidence emerged in Glazer's personal correspondence. In the manager's letters with federal contacts, the necessity of Billie's neutralization was discussed. Glazer wrote that the Strange Fruit problem required a permanent solution and suggested that Lady Day's eventual demise was inevitable. These documents revealed the scope of the conspiracy and the extent of betrayal around Billie. In the late 1950s, although Billie Holiday was physically and mentally devastated, she continued to sing Strange Fruit. Lady Day's performances in her final years had a haunting quality because the song's words were no longer just social commentary but had become personal prophecy. Billie's voice had been damaged due to years of abuse and substance dependency, but the emotional impact had become even more powerful. At a 1958 Carnegie Hall concert, Billie performed Strange Fruit while in tears. The audience could see Lady Day's fragility but also witnessed her unbroken spirit. This performance seemed like Billie's final confrontation with the song for many people. Critics described the performance as heartbreaking and prophetic. The most poignant moment occurred during one of Billie's final club performances. In early 1959, while singing Strange Fruit at a small jazz club in Boston, Lady Day suddenly stopped and turned to the audience, saying, "This song is killing me, but I have to sing it." These words were like a spontaneous confession and became an unforgettable moment for the musicians and fans present. The final irony was that Billie spoke about Strange Fruit even in her hospital bed. During her dying hours at Metropolitan Hospital, Lady Day was witnessed whispering Strange Fruit still hanging to the nurse. This final reference symbolized the completion of a 20-year cycle and demonstrated the song's eternal grip on Billie's life and death. As Abel Meeropol, the creator of Strange Fruit, witnessed Billie Holiday's tragic fate, he experienced increasing guilt and regret. Meeropol originally had the noble intention of delivering the song's powerful social message to the world, but he couldn't anticipate the personal cost to Billie. As a teacher and activist, Meeropol was committed to the civil rights cause, but he developed conflicted feelings about the individual artist's sacrifice. In the 1950s, Meeropol began expressing concerns to friends about Billie's situation. In his correspondence, he raised questions about whether Strange Fruit had become a curse for Billie and whether the song's intended social impact was worth Lady Day's personal destruction. This internal struggle reflected the tension between the creator's artistic responsibility and human compassion. The most poignant confession occurred in a private interview Meeropol gave in the 1960s. The teacher said, "If I had known what would happen to Billie, I would never have written this song. No artistic statement is worth one person's life." This admission demonstrated Meeropol's profound regret and sense of responsibility. Ironically, Meeropol's guilt enhanced Strange Fruit's legacy. The creator's public statements simultaneously highlighted the song's power and tragic consequences. This duality cemented Strange Fruit as both an artistic triumph and human tragedy, making it a martyr symbol in the civil rights movement. Additional FBI files released in the 2000s through Freedom of Information Act requests revealed the full scope of the Strange Fruit conspiracy. These documents provided previously unknown details about the systematic campaign and demonstrated the coordination level of government agencies. The most shocking revelation was that the operation continued into the 1960s and extended to other musicians as well. Declassified documents showed that the FBI classified Strange Fruit as a cultural weapon and took proactive measures to prevent similar songs. These measures included intimidating songwriters, applying pressure to radio stations, and exerting influence on record companies. The government had developed a systematic approach to using the music industry as a social control tool. Additional evidence suggested CIA involvement as well. The agency's Cultural Programs Division promoted alternative musical content to counter Strange Fruit's impact. This effort created confusion within the jazz community and complicated authentic artistic expression. In the Cold War context, a cultural battle was being fought through music. The most significant discovery was the correlation between the timing of Billie Holiday's death and classified operations. Documents indicated increased surveillance in Lady Day's final weeks and discussions of termination authorization. This evidence transformed conspiracy theories into legitimate concerns and made Strange Fruit's legacy even more tragic. Strange Fruit's cost to Billie Holiday transcended a single artist's career and affected the entire music industry. The song's precedent discouraged other musicians from political content and promoted a culture of self-censorship. Jazz, blues, and soul artists began avoiding controversial subjects because Billie's fate served as a warning. Industry executives began talking about Strange Fruit syndrome, the potential for artists' political statements to lead to commercial suicide. This mindset sanitized musical content and suppressed authentic expression. The musical dimension of the civil rights movement was significantly limited because artists had witnessed Billie's tragic example. Paradoxically, Strange Fruit's power derived exactly from this suppression. The song's forbidden nature and Billie's sacrifice made the message even more potent. Underground circulation, bootleg recordings, and whispered performances transformed Strange Fruit into a resistance symbol. Lady Day's suffering provided additional emotional weight and historical significance to the song. From a modern perspective, Strange Fruit was immortalized through Billie Holiday's martyrdom. Her death became the ultimate validation of the song and provided a powerful rallying cry for the civil rights movement. Ironically, authorities' efforts to silence Billie amplified the message and made Strange Fruit even more influential. Strange Fruit continues to generate controversy and debate even today. When modern artists attempt to cover the song, Billie Holiday's shadow haunts every performance. Many musicians admit to being scared to perform Strange Fruit because the song's cursed reputation persists. This psychological impact demonstrates the continuation of Lady Day's tragic legacy. Educational institutions use Strange Fruit to teach racism history but often minimize Billie's personal cost. While the song's social significance is emphasized, the individual artist's sacrifice remains underplayed. This approach creates incomplete understanding regarding comprehending Strange Fruit's full impact. Contemporary social movements reference Strange Fruit as an inspiration source, but modern activists should carefully consider the lessons of Billie's fate. Power structures' capabilities to target artists have been significantly enhanced by technology, and modern musicians may face similar risks. Lady Day's experience illustrates the delicate balance between artistic courage and personal safety. The ultimate irony is that Strange Fruit's intended message was achieved, but it required the destruction of the creator and primary interpreter as the cost. The song significantly advanced civil rights consciousness, but required Billie Holiday's life as payment. This tragic exchange demonstrates the sometimes deadly intersection of art and activism and provides a sobering lesson for future generations. Billie Holiday's relationship with Strange Fruit will remain one of music history's most tragic stories. Lady Day became the target of a systematic destruction campaign lasting 20 years simply by singing a song, and eventually this campaign killed her. Abel Maripol's warning proved correct. Strange Fruit really did kill Billie Holiday. The coordinated efforts of the federal government, organized crime, and the music industry provided a dark example of how a single artist could be destroyed. Billie's experience brutally illustrated the price of artistic freedom and the potential consequences of political expression. Lady Day's courage was admirable, but the ultimate cost was unbearable. Strange Fruit's legacy was written with Billie Holiday's blood. Every performance of the song remembers Lady Day's sacrifice, and every new interpretation pays tribute to her tragic fate. When modern listeners hear Strange Fruit, they experience not simply a powerful song, but also the chronicle of one woman's destruction. Perhaps the most important lesson is the recognition of art's power and the necessity of protecting artists. Billie Holiday's story demonstrates the value of creative expression, but also highlights artists' vulnerability. Society has the responsibility to protect future Lady Days and should support artistic courage while ensuring artists' safety. Strange Fruit killed Billie Holiday, but also made her immortal.
Lady Day's voice lives in every note of the song, and her message continues in the struggle against racism. This paradox represents art's ultimate power. Even through destruction, truth endures, and justice eventually prevails. Billie Holiday's sacrifice made Strange Fruit more than simply a song, an eternal symbol of resistance, courage, and artistic integrity.